Well, Arden, thanks for inviting me. I know the singing hadn't got any better, so that's why you cut the loud. I remember. So
we still have Alan here.
Is that it? Basically, Arden invited me to speak on where Divine is, where it's going, what's happened over the last several years and everything, and I figured 20 minutes was way too much for me to talk about Divine, so I invited Jamey to talk about, we're part of the Made in Oklahoma Coalition, and I've been involved in that for, 3 years now at least, and it's a great organization. It's state-sponsored, and it was started by, well, I don't want to steal all the thunder that Jamey will be talking about, but there's some pretty great companies that was involved in this when it got started, and it has really grown, and I'll let Jamey talk about that. But I wanted to bring her in as the expert when it comes to Made in Oklahoma Coalition. Tell me, knowing this group, how many people have not been to the well on the Highway 11? We got one person. Okay, so what do you remember about the well? I mean, what's some of the things that you remember?
Rode up with plastic jugs getting water. Yeah.
There you go. A lot of people do that. I've seen pickup loads of gallon jugs going out of there. Arden.
It was cold.
It was cold water, and normally it's about 55 degrees. It runs about 70 gallon a minute is what's coming out of that pipe, and it's been doing it since 1954. And so
I remember the monument about Mr. Brickman.
Okay.
Because he actually had his farmstead out west of town, about just the other side of where the menagerie is now. And back in '54, he was drilling that thing. Wait a minute.
That's crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, if you'll go on our website, divinewater.com, you'll see, if you'll go to the About part of the website, and there's a video that Channel 4 News did when we bought the property in 2003. And Galen Colbert, Is This a Great State or What? You all seen that program. Well, if you'll go there, and it told, and Carl Lael was a young man when that was drilled, and it shows the original, when they hit that well, how much water was coming out of there and everything. So you need to go on and see that original video that was put on our website. And Channel 4 News did it back in 2003, like 2 months after we'd acquired it. Troy.
I do know that water is really good for brewing beer. And that I still think that we need a brewery now so that we can have another use for your water.
I'm going to tell you a little story that goes along with that. Of course, I've had some other brewers talk to me about it. And transportation and building a brewery out here is part of the issue because of that. But I actually had a guy about 2 weeks ago approach me about brewing. You brew whiskey? Or distill whiskey. And he was talking about, he says, they need that type of water, and he says, I've drank out of that well when I was a kid, and he says, I know it'll make good whiskey. and I had a so-called Scotch connoisseur, which I said, I didn't know you could even make Scotch taste good. And so anyhow, but this Scotch connoisseur, he said, I'm a Scotch connoisseur, and I said, well, I've had people tell me this water goes really good with Scotch. And so he said, I'll try it. So he did, and he come back, and he says, I want to buy into this company. And I said, well, you need to try our ice, because we also make all natural ice, so it's the same ice as the water. And so after he tried the ice, he definitely was sold on it, and I could go into more than 20 minutes on that deal. We began bottling in 2004. I'm in Caldwell, Kansas. And then we were their biggest customer, and if you remember, we weren't very big at that time, and so they went broke. I ended up buying their equipment, leasing their building for 1.5 years, and then in that time I was building the other building, and that's when we moved all that equipment up there and started in about 2007. And we deliver 5-gallon water, as most of you know, and we also have wholesalers like Alva Market, but we're in jumbos. We're getting ready to get into Homeland. We're getting ready to get into some pretty good size major distributors that distribute all over, and it's through Made in Oklahoma coalition that's helped us get into that realm. As you can see, I want you all to take a glass bottle I didn't want you drinking any city water, so that's why I brought bottled water. But take one of those glass bottles with you, and the other bottles as well. This is a new liter bottle that we're just now coming out with. It hadn't hit the store shelves yet, and we also. Well, the glass bottles have been in some pretty high end. We've even served that in the Vast up there at Devon Towers. So it's been some pretty high end restaurants, and we got some high end hotels that use our water just to sit around on the, in the rooms. Bulk water, we as you know, we sell bulk water as well for drilling purposes and that kind of thing. We do custom label. Takes about 3 weeks if your business wanted to have custom labels. There's several in here, Kurt. I know has bought our water, and it takes about 3 weeks once we get everything approved to get that done. So it's a relatively quick deal. Basically, if you have any questions, I'll answer some questions, or I'd like to bring Jamey up, Jamey Allen with the Department of Ag. She's the Secretary of Ag's right-hand lady, I call her. She pretty well knows what goes on at the department. Yes, Alan. Yes, sir.
Describe that aquifer, where it has been low.
Oh, okay. We found out in the last couple of years. I'm sorry, Jay.
You're good.
We found out that I had a geologist through all this oil field stuff. We had a geologist that had the credentials to tell me where that water came from. And everybody's always said, well, it's come from Greenland, it's come from the Rockies, it's come from wherever. He says, I can tell you exactly where your water's coming from, and it's in the North Canadian alluvial terrace of the Arkansas River system. And that's where it comes from. It's a small channel that goes through. It takes 15 years for that water to get here from the Rockies, is where it comes from. It comes across the Colorado. It starts out as a snowflake, basically. Comes through Colorado, southern Kansas, and then hits us in Oklahoma. And it's, let's see. I think, they explain it, 15,000 years ago when the glaciers come down across and formed the plains and everything, all that rocks and gravel fell down in the valleys and stuff of these mountains. And so we're actually on top of some mountains right here. We're at 1,430 feet. So that rocks and gravel has filled in there down to that level. And so that's what it comes through to get to us, all the way from the Rockies. It takes 15 years to get here. Yes, Jen?
Do you have any concerns with the recent earthquakes about the impact on that?
Every day I'm concerned with what's happening there, and there's been one time that it almost shut off, and it's because of me, and I was trying to see how much I could pull from this one well on the highway, and I about shut her down. You just don't know how close that come, and it really bothered me. So yes, it does bother me, these earthquakes and what could happen if it was to close that vein off or something like that. That's why when all the thumper trucks went across this country, I wouldn't let them go in there and thump on it. I made them do it electronically. So, any other questions? I could really talk a long time if you ask questions. But
the vein is like all across your property there.
After it.
Several wells on there.
Well, after I bought it, I found out that the main well's what I bought. And I didn't realize there was 2 other artesian wells on the property that I didn't know anything about, and they were in the when I found I didn't know that I had any irrigation wells. Well, I went through the process and got the water rights for bottling. Well, come to find out, when I got done, Larry, after they was closing the estate, said, hey, we just got this paperwork that you need to tell them how much you use for irrigation. Well, Eddie had 100 acre feet of irrigation rights also there. And so I found out at that point there was 2 other artesian wells on the property. And so I designated those other 2 as also a place that I could get bottled water rights. And see, there's a difference between what I got as far as water rights and irrigation water rights. And so with that being said, I've got 2 other wells. I can go to the one on the highway. I found out the water's the same at the other one. And so I use it for the plant. I left the one open on the highway, which I was planning on using when I bought the property, and still try to leave it open. But it's the water right. We got 140 million gallons of water that we can use a year for bottling. I couldn't do it because I don't have the equipment to do it. It takes a lot of equipment to bottle that much water. And so.
So Max is the open one that everybody stops and uses. Does that actually belong to you?
Yes. Yeah, well, I always tell everybody it belongs to the bank and I'm just taking care of it.
But you have the right if you wanted to.
Oh, I could shut it off. Yeah, I could lock that up and if I wanted to. Yeah, it's my property. There's nothing that's, I mean, it's like your property. You can do whatever you want to with it. Yeah.
There are some other wells across the road north of that come from that same aquifer, is that right?
I don't know. I know there's some artesian wells north, but it's to know that it comes from that particular aquifer, I don't know because I've never tested the water. This right here, now if you really want to know, right there's a water test that we do annually, and it tells, I mean, it's just page after page after page of what they test. I can tell you everything that's in that water. So I can tell you total dissolved solids is a pretty easy deal, and nitrates and all that, but that tells you everything. I mean, so if you ever want to know exactly.
Does it change much over time?
It hasn't. It hasn't. The pH has changed just a little, not much, but I think it was because of the drought. I mean, that's what I've been thinking, but it's pretty close to normal. I mean, normal is 7 pH is perfect, and looking here, I think it was 6.7, so we're right there. It's about as good as it gets, and the way to tell good water is to drink at room temperature and taste it like you would a wine or something. Just taste it and really feel the mouthfeel of it. If you'll go on the finewaters.com, it'll also give you a lot of stuff about water. So
When you talk about irrigation wells, and they'll tell about the levels dropping and stuff, I mean, do you test how far your water level is dropping?
all I know is my wells have never went dry, and so I've never worried about that. I've got irrigation wells that'll pump a lot of water, and then I've got other irrigation wells that drilled right close that won't hardly move any water. It's crazy. You'd think every place over there would have a lot of water, but it doesn't. I stuck a well one time where it was supposed to be really good, and it wouldn't pump 25 gallon a minute. And then I put another one out there, and it pumped 350 to 400. So it's crazy. I've drilled one well 20 foot from another one, and I can suck it dry in 5 minutes with a half-horse motor. So it's crazy. I mean, it's not everywhere.
If you've got a good well, how long do you drill it?
Huh?
If one of the good ones that you drilled, how deep was it?
I think it was 110 feet. That was an irrigation well. That's one that I use for my bulk water. So the one on the highway is 27 foot. The one I use for the plant's only 45. So it's not very deep. Jamie, Mac, you had one question. Come up here, Jamie.
More of a smart remark.
Oh, not from you.
A pH of 7 is kind of what we strive for in our hot tubs.
Uh-huh.
Do you fill hot tubs?
We do. For all it takes is money, Mac. Jamie, I know there's going to be some questions about the MIO as well.
Well, I thank you for inviting me. I've just enjoyed getting to visit with everybody that I've had the opportunity. Got a friend from Hunter. I want to make sure I get a picture with him before I leave, because back home at church, I go to church with a lady that's from Hunter, and this gentleman in the front has trained our state veterinarian, Dr. Rod Hall. So, well, I don't know him very well, but I do know we've got a good state vet. Well, I work for the Department of Agriculture with the Made in Oklahoma program, and we actually marketing. I don't regulate anything, and I'm so happy not to do that. But you can still make people mad if you try to give away money. That's the quickest way to make people mad. If they're not a fit, or you don't think their idea is as good as they think their idea is. But one thing about this Made in Oklahoma Coalition, this has been one of the great successes of the Department of Agriculture. It's an example of a public and private partnership. They meet monthly, and it started with a group of 8 men, 8 companies. And we have a Made in Oklahoma program that's been around since the 80s, and it includes everybody. I mean, it would be the Shawnee Mills of the state, and then somebody that makes a jam or a jelly down the road. And these small companies don't have the same needs as the large companies, and we saw they would tell us, we don't want to join your little program. We don't need bags, and we don't want to go sit 11 days at the state fair and tell everybody how good our salsa is. We need something else. We need some kind of a cooperative marketing tool. And from that information, the leadership then at that time at the Department of Agriculture was Rick Maloney, and I really give him a lot of credit because he's the one that put into play the program, the MIO Coalition, as a group. And Barbara Charlotte, she works with the program. I'll give her credit for sending you all a sample of one of our Made in Oklahoma companies. If there's not a Bed-Raid chocolate bar at your table, somebody got two.
See Henry Bickerstaff.
So, Henry, if Henry got yours, you just see me.
Empty seat right here.
That's right. That's right. I got a few extras over here. So, and we also have some extra pads and pencils. So as you leave, I don't want to take any pads and pencils home. And if there's candy bars left over, Jane's taking those. So. But this company grew. The coalition grew from 8 members to about we're kind of it volleys back and forth, but we think about 55. And used to it was as easy as you just coming up and say, "Hey, I'll be a member of that coalition," and but you have to pay a membership fee. And then that kind of like weeded a few out, and you have to be able to sell. We have to go through a distributor, so you have to be able to sell regionally and nationally. And some of our companies, those mom and pop jelly jam places that I've talked about, they've started with the coalition, and because of the networking that they've been able to do with like Griffin Foods, who also has a jelly. So in a way, they're competitors, but they've shared the resources. What the companies have the opportunity to do is advertise using a medium that they couldn't afford by themselves, but collectively they can. The legislature has been supportive of this program to the tune of about $300,000 a year for the last 15 years, which is a lot of money. But when you see the statistics of how many people work for these companies and the impact statewide, I'm for spending my money on a little of that. So, I'd vote for it even if I didn't work for it. And maybe because I work so closely with it and I see the impact, that makes it a little easier for me to support. We also have some other programs in our division, which I couldn't help when you mentioned the menagerie. We have a program, we sponsor the agritourism program. So I think I can't wait to see the well this afternoon. Maybe you should go with us so you can see it. I mean, it's just me and you. They're the only 2 people that haven't been out there. We have agritourism, we have farm to school, we have ag in the classroom, international marketing, and we all network with each other. Oftentimes we do loans and grants. There's a grant opportunity that, since I've got some of the community leaders here, I'd love to just mention this in case you know anybody that's interested in diversifying agriculture. We do have a grant and a loan program that helps with that, and I'd be glad to give you any information. I've got a few cards up here that I would love to pass out to you. I'm not the know-it-all of anything. I'm just tell Max I really make coffee in the morning because I'm the first one there a lot of times, and I know a little bit about everything at the Department of Ag, and not an expert on anything, but I can sure hook you up with someone. And I take any questions you've got about the coalition or anything else that's going on at the Department of Ag.
Is there a cost for these Made in Oklahoma mom and pop companies to be a member?
Now we have 2 different programs. Now with the Made in Oklahoma program, no, there is no cost to be a member. And with that benefit, you get some marketing tools that might help you if you're small and just getting started. Then the coalition, those are the big boys, or the people that want to get big, want to get bigger. A lot of people are just happy with a smaller business, but with the larger company, yes, there's a cost, and it's $300 a year. It was 350. 350. It used to be 250. 350 a year, and there's an application process, and you go before a board to determine if you meet the criteria to be a membership.
One thing that the Made in Oklahoma Coalition, like you was talking about competition, I'm the treasurer of the coalition, and the president is Steve, who is he's with Ozarka. So here we are, we sit on the same board. We do now that's Ozarka of Oklahoma. Now, when you buy Ozarka, chances are when you go down here to the store and buy Ozarka, you're not buying his water, you're buying Ozarka of Texas. And it comes through another distribution deal. So pay attention to things like that and where your water comes from. Because like the Ozarka of Texas is a whole nother deal than the Ozarka of Oklahoma. And so it'll say Made in Oklahoma Coalition on the Ozarka of Oklahoma. But you have a lot of companies that are competitors, but we're still close. We still talk about the same things, and we work together.
They give each other a hard time. There's no mercy.
That's right.
In
That's
those meetings
exactly.
at all.
We don't drink each other's water
That's
in
true.
public.
How many current members to the Ma and Pa side versus the big
There are about
side?
450 members of our small program, and we actually this year was the first year that the coalition. They're a very unselfish group. There are 3 different groups involved in the coalition. There's the retail, which Max is in. They're selling something. There's the restaurant side, and those are restaurants that use Made in Oklahoma products. They buy locally as much as possible. So we've got the restaurant side, and then we have a new group called the emerging members, and these are people that like Billy Goat's ice cream, or
What's that beer company? I can't even think of it.
Co-op ale. These are small. They sound small, but they're just kids like Kai's bars. Yeah, they're go-getters. And we've started this new committee, and it's been so successful that the attendance to these committee meetings are higher than the established committee meetings, because there's always some kind of super guest speaker, like the buyer for some big groceries chain.
Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart came, and we've got one coming. I think you got that Affiliated Foods is going to be coming. We're going to have a meeting. I'm sure every member will be there for that meeting. So it's an opportunity to grow our companies. Our goal is to increase income at the farm gate or at the door of every Oklahoman that we work with. So this is one of the tools that we really believe is successful. Yes, sir?
I heard you mention the word ale. Tell me more about that.
Well, I can tell you all. I'm just going to say this. I'm a teetotaling Baptist, but I do dance. So, all that said, I know. We do a lot of other duties as assigned, and one of those is we manage all of the vineyards and wineries in Oklahoma. So although I don't drink, I support the wine industry in Oklahoma. But this co-op ale, that is one of the new Made in Oklahoma companies in the program, and they just make beer. They can beer. They have a facility on the west side of Oklahoma City. We have several little companies like that manufacture spirits. Prairie is one of our. That's right. We actually have a wine trail that you can find on for anybody that's interested. That's very. It's really a lot of fun, and there's one up here in your area, Fairview, around the Fairview area. That's a lot of fun. So I've heard, and that's on our agritourism website. Not all of those companies, those wineries, they're usually not members of the coalition because of the laws that limit some of their sales. Anything else I can do for you? Yes, sir.
Yes, it says here that this is an economic enterprise of the Chickasaw Nation.
It is.
Do they have several of these different types of enterprises?
Those Chickasaws are everywhere.
See them on TV all the time.
Oh my gosh, those 10-minute commercials in prime time, yes.
I've been surrounded by them.
Yes. I don't work directly with the Chickasaws, but yes, they're looking to get out of the casino business. That's their goal eventually, and so they just encourage entrepreneurship within the tribe. And one of the Bedray chocolate is one of those. If you're ever headed down south, anytime you're headed anywhere, give Max a call. He'll give you my phone number, and I can hook you up with somebody that can tell you where to stop on the way, no matter what your area of interest is. If you ever get down to the Department of Ag, please come in. Oh, I've got more beef jerky. I can tell you every beef jerky place.
I'm going to guess there's a website that maybe lists all of them.
Yes. Yes. And on the pencil that's on your, that's the coalition website. But if you'll just look up madeinoklahoma.com, that will give you, madeinoklahoma.net. madeinoklahoma.net, that gives you all of those 400 lists, and they're listed any way you want to look. If you just want to find out what beef jerkies are, who's making them,
diners,
anything.
Now you'll go
Coalition.
to you go to the Made in Oklahoma Coalition with
For restaurants.
and we got a new website, and it may be up now.
Not quite, but
it's almost.
Yes, it's almost.
We've been working on it. And also Facebook, like
That's
us on
right.
Facebook, like Divine Water on Facebook, like MIO Coalition on Facebook, and go to that, and that should be up pretty quick. I mean, we're just around the corner from that being a brand new website. It'll be really neat.
Well, if there's nothing else, it's just been a pleasure being here, and in your part of the world too. I just enjoyed my drive over here. No other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, could I ask Max one last question? Hey, what is artesian? What's the definition of it?
Artesian means that it will flow above ground level on its own pressure. So, for instance, this is a good example right here. This right here, let's drill a well right here. You've got a water table coming in. This is a clay level. You got water coming in right here, all right? And you drill a hole down here, and water always seeks level. And so you drill that hole here, and that water will come up above ground level where you drilled it, but actually it's leveling out with the water that's being held up by a mountain or whatever back here, or here. But that's a clay level, and that's why they call it artesian. It's no different than a spring. That water, if there was a hole in the ground, it'd be called a spring, you know. So it doesn't make it good water just because it says artesian.
Your
Or
guest will support those two. The old Stover place right across from there.
Mhm.
That was the Harmon Homestead years and years ago.
Okay.
And just through the generations, I've always heard that is your well there is some of the purest water in Oklahoma. I don't know about other artesian wells, but
well, if you'll notice the water on, like they'll say spring water and reverse osmosis, a lot of spring waters will reverse osmosis their water or distill it and put mineral back in it to give it taste. Just because it's spring water doesn't make it good water. Just because it's artesian water doesn't make it good water. It's all the source of where it come from. And as far as I know, we've got the best well, and I don't know of any other well that has any purer water than this well does. Now,
that's the old saying for years and years with all the people. Evident by how many people stop and collect it.
well, it's just if they had a good manager over there, they could really go great guns.